Welcome to Moving Through and Beyond, a podcast dedicated to sharing inspired journeys of redefining life, vision, and purpose after immense hardship and grief. My goal with this podcast is to give you hope and to let my guest journeys inspire you to make the choice to keep looking up. I'm your host, Carey Conley. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Moving Through and Beyond podcast. I'm Carey Conley, your host. And my goal here is to bring people to you that are doing amazing things in the world and very successful, but they have stories to tell. And I would love for them to tell their stories and describe to you guys how they got through that. And my guest here today is Letitia Frye.
Hi.
How you doing? I'm so
well.
excited about this.
I'm thrilled
So
to be here.
excited.
Honored.
Letitia is a world-renowned auctioneer.
Yeah.
Yes. Probably... the leading female auctioneer I'm thinking in the world. You have
one
to be
of them. One of them up there. Yeah. It's been quite a road, but I'll own that title.
You know what? You should. And I've seen you in action, girl. I mean, amazing.
Thank you.
Raises millions and millions of dollars for organizations all over the world. So you are making such a huge impact.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's a
I
fun
appreciate
career.
you taking out the time to be here.
It's honestly a humbling honor, and as you and I touched upon personally, a very needed message that you're bringing to the world. I'm honored to be a part of it.
Well, I would love for you just to start talking a little bit about your background.
Yeah.
And then we'll touch on some of your stories too.
Yeah, I would say that for me, we might as well get this out of the way because everyone that's out there listening goes, well, what do you mean she's an auctioneer? So here you go. 1,000, you have it at 15, now 2, now 25, 25, you have it at 3,000, you have it at 35, sold, 3,500. So that's that. I get asked in elevators everywhere, we go, can you do that thing?
Do the thing.
Do that
yes.
thing. So yes, did that thing. Wasn't necessarily what I intended to do with my life. I actually, I always say, born West Coast, raised East Coast. I got a little bit of everything going on, which is a great way to grow up, a little mix of everything. And went out to USC to study theater in college. And so that theatrical background would find its way onto a stage in a much different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so went back to New York for a small stint. But my best friend and I in college met, fell in love after college, and got married pretty young, 26, 27. And we headed out to San Francisco. And I've stayed out west ever since.
Mm-hmm.
I've never ventured back from there. And when I came here to Arizona, which this last holiday on Labor Day was 20 years to the date since I moved here, and I was coming on a 5-year plan, oh, God's greatest joke on us. How's that 5-year plan? And we came here for a better cost of living because the .com era had blown up in San Francisco.
Got it.
And that's how we landed ourselves here. So I was thinking about it 20 years ago when I got off a plane here with a brand new 4-month-old baby girl, knowing I wanted another child, thinking I know everything. I'm 32. I know what I'm doing. I know who I'm married to forever. I know what my life looks like. Yeah, that's funny.
That's when God goes,
I was like,
strap in, girl.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck with that. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what brought me to here. And I would say that, when my life shook out and I got my marriage was starting to crumble apart. In fact, my whole life was crumbling apart. That's when auctions showed up. So auctions originally was a total fluke. My roommate from USC, who knew I was a theater major, had moved here before me. And it was when Weston Carolyn was first opening, like 18 years ago.
Okay.
And she was hosting Party Gras Under the Palms. And she was like, oh, can you come? I just had my second child. She's like, can you come just be the MC? Because at that time, I was doing part-time on the morning news here at ABC 15 with Andy Barness, as her stand-in. I was modeling. So it made sense to MC, So I went to MC and their auctioneer never showed up. So she had me do it. And that was the beginning of the end. And then I went to auction school and the rest was just history. So yeah. So who knows? Careers, everything.
I mean, what little girl grows up going, I'm going to be an auctioneer?
Well, you know what? Now they do.
I'm sure.
Now they
because
do.
you paved that path.
Yeah, now they do, actually.
Yeah.
And I've had little girls that saw me first time on stage. It's been 18 years since I've been doing this. So some little girls have seen me when they were 10, and then I run into them at 28, and they are auctioneers.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so you had a family here.
I did. I did one child born in San Francisco and one child born here. A boy and a girl, kind of hit the lotto on that.
Yep.
And that was it. I never thought I'd have not be with my former husband. Mm-hmm. And truthfully, if I look back, I'm one of the few members of our friendship, of our circle that are still alive. I mean, it was the late 80s in LA and USC. I mean, it was a crowd. So, and it was a lot of money from kids from families like that. And, a lot of habits that people that are kind of play with in college, you think, okay, I'm growing out of that. I'm just moving out of that. But unfortunately for my former husband, addiction Just wasn't something he seemed to kind of be able to get away from. And that's really ultimately what drove us apart. But we still stayed best friends. I never really thought I wouldn't have him in some capacity always in my life, because he was my best friend since I was about 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
So, I really didn't, I couldn't foresee anything that was coming my way, Carey. Nothing.
Well, unfortunately, the way we met is I heard you speak when I moved here, heard your story of loss. And I walked up to you and said, okay, so we have something in common.
Yeah.
I have lost my husband to suicide. Yeah. And at that point, my son was still alive when we met, and then lost him 3 years later. And I know that you've lost not one, but two as well. So we're in a really small little little club that nobody wants to be in. Right?
Yeah, no one wants to be in. First of all, anyone that hasn't experienced a traumatic sort of ripping apart of a lost loved one so suddenly is horrible in and of itself. But a lot of the mysteries and the questions that lie behind when someone dies to suicide, it's tough.
Right.
It's really tough.
Yeah.
It leaves a big void.
Big void. A lot of questions, a lot of guilt, a lot of emotions to work through.
Yep.
And I don't think, honestly, now that it's been 5 years since I've lost my son, 8 since my husband, that you ever fully, completely healed from it.
No.
It's a journey, and we get better every year.
Yeah.
And I learn a lot, but it's tough.
Yeah.
So when this happened to you,
So for those of you that are out there listening, although the divorce was very, very hard on me, and it really was, because again, Steve and I were just, he was my person.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, addiction is addiction. It just is what it is. But I kind of always hoped that he would pull that together and kind of circle back around. But he just really couldn't beat that demon. And unbeknownst to me, a lot of things had gone wrong with him financially. He was legally in trouble. There was just a lot of things going on that I just didn't know about. So again, when you look back at it, you see that the signs were there. But our what would have been our wedding anniversary, it was July 20th, and it was the day after that, because we always acknowledged that, even though we were split.
Right.
We always took the kids out to dinner and acknowledged, hey, this is where you came from. We always tried to maintain a lot of love between us for the kids too, and we really did, adore each other. And he took his life. Yeah, he took his life. And I just didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming. And for those of you listening, I would say I have to back that up a little bit, because 8 months prior to that, at the height of my career, I was Thanksgiving morning, on November 27th of 2014, and I'd gone out for a jog in the morning. And at that time, I was dating my college sweetheart that, ironically, when I was dating him in college, is how I met my husband, because they were fraternity brothers. So in this bizarre twist,
close tribe.
Yeah, 25 years later, here I am dating that guy again and best friends with, Steve, and those two got along really well too. So that day, I was actually going to fly later in the day down to my I think we were engaged at that point. I think we were, or maybe we weren't engaged, but soon, eventually he'd be my fiance.
Right.
And so Steve was coming over to do like brunch for Thanksgiving and then drop us off at the airport, and I was go with the kids. So I went out for a jog thinking I had a little time, kids are all dressed, and I got hit by a car. So I had a brain injury because I was thrown 15 feet in the air and landed on my head, so I suffered a TBI. So anyone that's out there that understands about TBIs, PTSD, post-concussive syndrome, in and of itself is its own journey, worthy of several podcasts. But when you're trying to come up from that, I had vertigo, I had seizures, I had blinding headaches, aggression, sleep deprivation, all kinds of problems. And you're on that journey. What people don't understand, whether you get another blunt force trauma to the head or something really emotionally upheaval, you go back to square one. So Stephen, unfortunately, his death by suicide occurred 8 months after that accident. So to me, it was like a blow back in the head all over again. So not only did I not see it coming, I was just trying to survive.
Right.
I was just trying to put one foot in front of the other, not lose this career that I had worked so tirelessly on. The type of brain injury I had, if I had a desk job like most people, I actually would have done pretty well. But I have a job where you get on a stage and get flushed by white lights, which PS called seizures for me. So it was difficult. But when Stephen's suicide happened, I mean, everything. My vertigo came back, the headaches everything came back. So just trying to get through all that and
be a single mom.
And of course, unfortunately, he passed without any money for his kids or anything like that. So it was really, wow, how do I get on a plane? How do I do this? The whole thing was just a very, very confusing, tumultuous time. I always kind of equate it with when you get, when you're under the water in a wave and you can't, for a minute, you just don't know what's up or down. Well, some very well-meaning friends decided to introduce me to a wonderful a man from Northern California who had had an equal amount of upheaval in his life, had lost his parents and different things, and a best friend had died in a car accident. I don't know why some people think misery makes great company.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, but he really is. He's a great person. But we ended up, and here I am thinking like, this is the rainbow at the end of the storm. And we ended up falling in love because the other relationship just didn't survive, Steve's suicide. And again, if you want to talk about ironic, Carey, the man that I was engaged to when Steve had taken his life, his own brother had taken his life a few years before. So he'd already walked that walk. Then I'm walking that walk. He's having to re-walk it with me.
Right.
And so we didn't survive that. Yep. So I get introduced to this guy, great kids, great family, and we fall madly in love and blend our families. We get engaged, and then his son takes his life. So now I'm doing what my other fiance had to do too. I'm now walking this walk with him. And of course, we didn't survive it either. And that's another thing for anyone that's out there. Look, in my line of work, I should say this earlier, I only do nonprofit auctions. That's what I do. I'm the person on the stage at a gala or a luncheon or wherever that is, raising money for good. And my biggest client is St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. I do like 40 of their events a year. And unfortunately, the statistics of divorce in a situation where a child dies of cancer or other things is usually about 85 to 90%. Yeah. So for those of you that are out there, whether it's suicide or something else you're going through, please understand that now I can comfortably tell you, yes, we didn't make it past that grief. It's okay. Ironically, the man whose brother took himself, we've become the best of friends in the world now. We didn't talk for like 7 years. Best of friends. Unfortunately, the last one I referred to, we haven't been able to really talk because there's a lot of pain there, and it's okay. Yeah. That's what I really want people to hear out there. It's okay. It's okay if a relationship doesn't make it or takes form as friendship or something else. You're on a journey of grief. There is no right or way or wrong way to do that, and you can't hold anyone else accountable on that either.
So good.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. So for me, eventually, I would tell you, I can unequivocally sit in this chair and say that they were the best things that ever happened to me. And I know that sounds crazy, but between the brain injury, when you get your head knocked like that, you're going to get rewired whether you like it or not. And then when you have tremendous loss back to back, and you've spent most of your life looking for the answers on the outside, ultimately you have to turn inward. Ultimately you do. And turning inward changed my life. As I told you a few days ago on Friday, I'll never forget it. When you're in grief, and a lot of people have a lot of different things that they recommend, I would take anything, especially with the brain injury. I was like, if you told me it's a full moon, stand on one leg with a lotus leaf and chant out and catch the first raindrop, I was like, I'm in. So of course, as an avid runner, even though I had that accident, I don't stop. I still run 50, 60 miles every day as far as, for the week. But 50, 60 miles in a week.
Yeah, I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, like 10 miles a day. So
that's amazing.
I, in the midst of all this grief, figured, how many times do I need to hear Madonna's Vogue when I'm out running? So I started listening to podcasts like this. I started listening to commencement speeches, sermons. And I remember, I'm not really a big Joel Osteen person, but again, people recommend it. I'm like, sure, it's got to help. So at this point, I'll take anything. And I always remember this. It was called Kiss It Goodbye. And it was about the book of Ruth. And it was on the mom, Naomi, one day after all of the loss and the death of her husband and the death of her sons, and eventually holding a grandson saying, I never knew I could be this happy. And this last Friday, I woke up and I literally just said, I never knew I could be this happy. And it's not because of a physical thing. There's no shift in my job. There's no shift in my, I'm not dating or anything. There's no change in anything, except that I would tell you that the journey that I had to take within released a joy I've never known. And it is so unfortunate that it took loss to get there, but I wouldn't trade the peace I feel within right now for anything. I only wish my loved ones were around to experience the same. Because truthfully, that's what suicide is those darkest days. Right. And I certainly hit them. I certainly hit them after those deaths. And after the loss of that last relationship, I hit some dark corners, and I have the scars to prove it.
Yeah. I'm glad that you were admitting that, because I think that's something else that people need to hear. Yeah. And we don't know why somebody gets into the depth and turns one way or the other way. And I've asked this question to everybody so far that I've interviewed, because every person has said there came a point where I knew I was either going to go this way or this way.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me that you really dug in
Yeah.
and hang in. So what do you think helped you the most during those times to start coming back up for air?
So a couple of things. There comes a point, I'm going to back up on something you just said because it probably is something that I should have clued into a little bit more with my former husband. It was on my daughter's birthday, and which was, at this point, we were like 6 months post-accident. I'd had another seizure. And he said to me, he goes, I don't understand it. How do you keep getting up? Like, I don't get it. And I didn't realize he was really speaking from his personal perspective. I said, what do you mean? You just do. And he goes, no, Letitia, not everyone does.
Right.
And I'm like, yes, you do. And he goes, no, you're really wrong. Not everyone is wired to do this. And I think for me, I looked at him, I said, I don't know, I just don't think, I do. I just get out of my head and I do it. Because ultimately, I want more than whatever's going on in my head. So if I look back through that now, in a weird way, that's kind of what I did. I didn't think, I just did. But there is a point, and anyone that's out there struggling too, you think to yourself, here's my 2 kids, they had to walk this with me, and here I am feeling suicidal. Yeah. And you're thinking, really? But then the other hard part is you're feeling it, and there's nothing worse than knowing you can't do it, even if you want to do it, because you're not going to be that asshole to your kids. But that doesn't take away the feeling that you want to. And waking up a prisoner in your own body every day is a horrible way to live. Yeah. And for me, I've come to understand that surviving is exhausting and living is exhilarating. And I choose to live. So for me, what happened the most of all of it when I turned inward, I'm not a big biblical person. I'm not a big God person. As far as religion goes, I've always considered more of a spiritual space. But in truth, again, desperate for help. So the ladies of Child Help gave me Jesus Calling. Rita Davenport dapped in with some different things, And at this point, I was open to anything and everything. So I started praying. I started praying in the morning. I started praying in the evening. I changed my habits. I had to examine my personal habits. I had to examine drinking. I had to examine a lot of things. As a head injury, you leave, here's some pain pills, here's some Klonopin, here's, so you really had to be like, okay, at one point the medication was helping me, and another point the medication is killing me. So it is time to take out a big mirror and take a look in it and ask yourself, what is going on here? But the bottom line that comes down to is you suddenly say, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. So I need out. I need out. So for me, it started with like listening to D.D. Jakes and listening to Joel Osteen while I ran. I just needed hope. I just needed a spark to vibrate on a higher level. But ultimately, that was sort of good for a while. What really the game changer for me was meditation. And I moved into a completely different realm of understanding God within and understanding a peaceful place and started studying a lot. I went on a solo trip, more or less, like 2 people with me, to Morocco. And it was all just women. But I went on a very much of an internal deep dive through that countryside, which I realized you don't need to go to Morocco to do. You could do it in your backyard. But there is something to Morocco that definitely opens one's mind to the idea of a certain peace that lies within. So I definitely did a little bit of an eat, pray, love kind of situation, and I own it. But it was all, it was so worth it. And that's ultimately what I came to understand, is that I'm worth it. And so last Friday I woke up and I just said, I never knew I could be this happy. And it's really because most of my life, long before I got hit by a car or any of these deaths happened, I was running from myself. I always thought it was my parents' divorce or the house I grew up in or this place or the divorce. And the truth is I was just running from me. Yeah. And so all this tragedy forced me to sit down with me. What's the common denominator between a divorce and 3 fiancés? What's the common denominator between all this tragedy? Right. It's me. Yeah. So ultimately it became a giant invitation to sit within myself. And the more I did, it's not easy. It is not easy.
Well, most people run from it.
And I understand until you get to the other side and you realize, no, please don't stop. You're worth it. Don't stop. And I know for me, if I went recently like 2 weeks without meditating, that's not good. That's not good. Yeah. The little monkey up there takes over.
I understand this. I've just started meditating.
I am the most type A, as you can tell, just diary of the mouth. It's part of my trade. I speak for a living fast. The idea of sitting quietly,
right?
Was
hard.
But there's a reason it's called a practice. There's a reason it's
Yeah.
called the practice.
I just started studying Joe Dispenza.
Ah, yeah.
Just
Very good.
mind-blowing.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, big
mind-blowing.
changer for me was Michael A. Singer. Mickey Singer was a big changer for
Love
me.
that too.
I love his weekly talks. I love a nice Jewish yogi that loves Christ.
Yeah.
That's like kind of right up my alley. That's kind of where I ended up popping out on the whole religious bars. I love all of it. I love all of it. Every single thing anyone gave to me, it all eventually came together and worked. I just don't really feel I need to side with one over another at this point. I love all of it.
Yeah.
So, but you know, and those of you that can't see, as we're speaking right now, there's a service dog underneath the table with me, which is for seizures and PTSD. And I haven't had a seizure, knock on wood, in years, and I'm off all my seizure meds. So he's really more of my companion than anything right now. But because of him, he needs to take medication to sleep. I don't take anything to sleep. I sleep 8 to 10 hours a night. No problem. I don't take anything for anxiety. No problem. Panic attacks, I just look them straight in the face. Here we go. We're going on a walk. Let's do this. I don't take anything for the seizures. I don't take anything. In fact, I even hit menopause in the middle of all of this. I was like, oh yeah, let's throw that in there.
Yeah. Why not?
Why not? Got on hormones for about a year and realized I don't want to do that either. I really just wanted to sit within my own skin and try to conquer not so much like, for the longest time I realized that these things were all here, and certainly grief is really, it's a roller coaster ride that is okay to be on the roller coaster. But ultimately, I understood that a lot of the medications and things I was given were treating the after effect. I wanted to get to the core of what was really going on. And so really sitting with grief, I mean, I would cry to the point where I almost pass out, but it's so much better than stuffing it inside.
Well, again, it's not easy, and it's been a journey for me as well. Unlike you, when I had my losses and people were coming forward giving me all sorts of advice, I was like, hey, I got this.
Oh.
Right? Like, go to group therapy. Yeah, no. Get a counselor. Yeah, no. I went inward, and that helped me a lot. I mean, I have a very deep connection with God, and because I leaned all in on that. But I think it's helpful that you're telling people that, try everything.
Try everything.
When people bring you stuff that help them, why not try it?
I mean,
and then feel what works.
I'll be honest, people sent me to mediums. I'm like, okay, tea leaf readers, okay.
Yeah.
Yoga, I'm in. I beggars can't be choosers, Can you just help the pain go away a little? Until I realized a lot, too, that the pain was really just my love in another form. And when you love so deeply, you hurt deeply.
Yeah.
You hurt deeply. And it's okay. I will say that so much progress came, particularly in this last year, which is also why I haven't dated. I mean, dating is just basically inviting, would you like to share my mess? So... should table for two here, So I really realized that until I got a chance to address the mess, it really doesn't belong with anyone but me. And so, that's why now I'm just so happy. I would totally start dating again if I had time, but I really don't have time. But it was just a point where you have to come to these, you're looking at all these exterior ways to try to soothe the interior monster until, like I said, like you're describing, the relationship within for me, which essentially is just God within. That's really in meditation, being able to drop into this natural state that is this beautiful, overwhelmingly wonderful field of joy that lies within all, which is really just blocked out from all the noise. Meditation, the first time I dropped into it, I was like, okay, is this legal?
That's what Joe Dispenza says. He says, once you get the hang of this and you see what comes of it, you're going to get like, I want more of that.
Exactly. I was like, can I go back to my room and meditate now, please? It's addictive because you just start to understand and open this window to realize how much chaos is going on that is really a choice necessary. And so like meditation helps me pause, recognize myself, and ask myself, would you like to observe the chaos or participate in it? And so by choosing observation over participation means I choose me. I choose God over the mess inside of me.
Yeah.
So so these practices were great for me. But again, like my children, watching them go through their own grief.
I was going to ask you about that.
Well, for me, instantly got everyone in therapy. My son hated it. My daughter loved it. They both were recommended to be on Prozac. My son hated it. My daughter loved it, and they've always kind of been that way. If you tell one kid, oh, if you do that, I'm taking this away, one of them would hand you the toy. The other one would be like, no. They just react differently. And that's how people are. Even if you listen to business coaches, I mean, you had Sharon Lecter in here, it doesn't get better than that. They will tell you approaching an entire staff of people as if they all respond the same is an idiotic practice. You meet people and the type of fear-based or reward-based they are. Same thing with grief. You have to figure out whatever's working for this personality and that one doesn't mean it's working for the other. And that's how my children were. So addressing this sort of blanket approach to their grief, I had to listen to them. And my son's like, look, football is my release. Football is like, even though dad really wasn't a big part of my football life, I meet him on that field and I work through things on that field. And he's a D1 football in college right now. Obviously that's working for him. My daughter didn't. And the more, I'll tell you what, talk about a wake-up call. When I was slipping through my most depression and literally just living my life like a robot as far as just get up, get on the plane, get off, pay the bills, it was Mother's Day the year after he passed. And I was in the kitchen and my kids basically had an intervention with me because my daughter was suicidal. And she even had a plan, whole thing out. They both broke down. I broke down. And they said, just say it out loud, Mom. I said, what? They said that you hate your life because we can see it every day. And I was like, I hate my life. I said, this is not what I signed up for, And my daughter said, can I talk to you alone? And I said, sure. And she said, Mom, I would love to tell you that the way I am right now is because of what happened with Dad. But the truth of the matter is you can't just wrap it in a box and put it in a bow like that. Yes, I lost my father. Yes, that has affected me. But the day he died, so did you. And I need you. You're here. I need you to wake up. On a dime is when I started that journey. On a drop of a dime. Because I realized this wasn't just about me. And so I had to find the methods to come out of those corridors and live again. And the kids are both doing great. They're excelling in college. They're on presidential scholarships at wildly expensive schools that I could never afford as a single mom, and everybody's going in their direction at a pace that is working for them and happy. And in the case of my daughter, my son, no meds, I knew no meds. So then she's like, well, then I have to get off meds after several years. And she bottomed out hard. And I said, honey, your dad suffered from depression too. It runs in our genes. You may not want to do that, but she kept doing it. So I said, then we need to you can't just leave you like a lamb to slaughter out there with this going on inside of you. So for her, it was yoga. She does yoga like 7 days a week. And so she tried to meditate and just really didn't understand.
Well, there's so many different ways
yes,
to meditate.
Well, there's also, yoga is one way to meditate.
Exactly.
So there is several ways into this kingdom, so to speak. And whatever little, it's like one of the Rubik's Cubes, whatever one finally licks it all in for you. And you're like, I got it. So for her, that was it. For my son, it's sports, it's football, the magic thing. And for me, it's running, it's nature, and it's meditation, and it's being outside. And the fact that my career involves giving back to people, I love it because I get to see people mostly at their best, and I get to see people in the struggle that remind me every day that they want to get out of the struggle. So when you see someone, there's such power in being able to be present when another is suffering, because at the very least, just being there to listen or to be a part of it helps you inside yourself. There's always someone that has it worse. There just is. There always is. But I have this one ALS patient, Doug, that I just love, and he's probably one of the longer standing cases of this disease. But he always says, I love life. I love life. And so when you watch someone with a 100% fatal disease tell you how much life means to them, sometimes it's that perspective you need to shift around.
I was just gonna say, it puts it all in perspective.
It does. It's really hard to start to understand that whatever's happening isn't really happening to you. It's happening. And that also includes the loss of loved ones. It's so hard to try to see it from a place of love and try to honor it rather than just constantly getting involved in it,
Yeah, so many good things you're touching on, Letitia. I think that you talking about where you went down and how you came back up, brought yourself up. And I think a big key point for both of us is that we had a bigger purpose that we wanted to carry out.
Yeah.
And we have family members that, we're like, gonna ask going, hey, we want you to be happy.
But I think too, for a long time, and particularly for moms out there or single parents in general, there's a lot of, do what needs to be done to feed the children, but at the same time, you can't lose you in there. Right. And so doing what needs to be done to feed the children is what I was doing for a long time until I realized I could do it joyously if I would just do the work.
Right.
So the work is tough. To quote a biblical phrase, all are called, few are chosen. I like to think that means all are called, few choose to do the work. So it's hard, but it's worth it. And so I would say if you're out there, yes, this is hard. Yes, meditation sounds very woohoo and all the rest of it, as does yoga. It doesn't matter what it is you figure out. I will tell you, no matter how hard it is, that you are worth it.
Yeah.
And there is another side to get to.
For saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people want to find you. How do they find you?
So I have a website, LetitiaFrye.com. Certainly lots of fun stuff on auctions. I also have a book out called No Reserve, which is talking about.
I read it, loved it.
Thank you.
Yes.
And for those of you that are out there, it's on all the. In fact, I'm so proud to say I have the same publisher as Sharon Lecter. But it's out there, No Reserve, on Amazon, everything else. You can follow me on Instagram at Letitia_Frye or find me on Facebook. But whoever you contact me, I try to answer everything myself. Yeah. So it's me.
I am just so happy that we met each other on this journey when we did.
Me too.
Who knew?
Who knew?
Yeah, but thank you.
Congratulations.
I appreciate your time here. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
I'm pretty excited about it.
You should
I appreciate your time. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this Moving Through and Beyond podcast. I'm Carey Conley, and I'm here to remind you to keep looking up. If you found this episode inspiring or helpful, please share it with a friend or a family member. In order to be successful on this mission, I can't do it alone. Connect with me at www.careyconley.com, and don't forget to sign up for my weekly Do It On Purpose newsletter. Let's build this life-giving vision movement together to end this epidemic, save lives, and create purpose.